Remember I told you early on that, and do speak to the devil? Well, it's as hot as hell in here, so this is a feat of British engineering, actually. Okay. We're at Power Strategy number 6, and by no accident, we're exactly 3/4 through the program. I am 271 in not in my litigation record. I've won 271 and I've lost none. And there's a reason for that. I don't get good representation, I get the best. The finest lawyers on this planet have represented me over the years. From Brendan Sullivan, who with Williams and Connolly, who got Ollie North off in America, to Warren Christopher, the former Secretary of State, Cyrus Vance, the former Secretary of State in America. I can't think of all the double, triple-barreled names of the guys that have represented me in this country, but I still remember when we were fighting. In fact, this suit that I just won. And went into the QC, my QC, into his chambers, and all my solicitors are there. And I said, I'd like to know if you consider yourself aggressive. Now, before I got there, they'd already told me this QC had won the largest sum of money for a plaintiff in the history of Britain. Well, I didn't mean a damn thing to me. If you get your leg cut up in this country, you get 1,400 pounds. I mean, so that didn't mean anything to me. So we're in there interviewing him, and I said, and I'm going through my Winchester, Etonian Pratt bullshit, and of course he was just perfect for this. And I said, but I need to know if you're aggressive, or can you be aggressive? And he said, well, ask your lawyers, your solicitors. I said, no, I'm asking you. And he says, and then his back stiffens up, and he says, Mr. Peña, if blood has to be put on the floor, I shall put it there. Now, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, it's like when I go to the House of Commons the first time, and in those days, Mr. Thatcher would get up and say something, everybody goes, oh, and they pound you, and they all growl. And then that means positive or negative. It doesn't. I don't know what it means. And it reminds me, there's a guy in the city, I'm not going to name his name, but he's the head of corporate finance at one of the big merchant banks. And the most fun I ever had here was fighting off a hostile takeover. And the other side, we were lining up and had all my American lawyers, and the gentleman got up and said, and he asked a guy at the table, he said, I was his fag at Eton. Now all my American lawyers look at me. But he says, now he's my junior. And I said, well... So I don't know exactly. The butlers are running around giving us, it was in the afternoon, coffee and brandy I think we're having. And then he says, gentlemen, I believe we have the opportunity here for Mr. Peña to fuck them rigid. Now, and everybody goes, oh, they pound on the table. And all my American lawyers are going, what do you mean we have an opportunity to fuck them rigid? And then later on, and he says, and we're going to have a go at this, we were fighting a triple-barrel named guy. And he said, and everybody goes, whoa. So that night, we go to the Ritz. No, we went to Savoy for dinner. And my American guys couldn't wait till all the Brits were either up, drunk, or whatever, to ask me, what is this rigid crap? And I mean, they pound, they make this groveling noise, good and bad. And I said, that's where we are, guys. That's just it. I don't know how to explain to you. In Brooklyn, forget about it means good or forget about it means bad. And a couple of the guys that went to school in Brooklyn said, oh, okay, I understand now, I understand. But top law firms, 271 and 0. Back when I was about 150 and 0, they said, oh, the odds are against you winning now, Dan. Odds are for me. I get out of more deals now because nobody wants to fight with me. You got to be crazy. And I could only do that with the very best that I could find. Don't go on the cheap, believe me. And litigation, ladies and gentlemen, is a business tool. It is, and all the big guys know it. Accepting litigation, I got behind, I guess. And as Gore Vidal says, for certain people after 50, litigation takes the place of sex. It has not taken the place of sex for me yet, but I'm only 4 years over 50, but it is just business to me. I just turn it over to the lawyers, I don't get emotionally involved, and I just let them carry on with it. And that's it. And I don't live and breathe it as most of you that aren't litigation battle scarred. How do you think Mr. Branson, he's fighting, I think he's still fighting British Yard, I don't think they ever settled that. I mean, he just turns it over to the lawyers. He doesn't live with it every day. And as part of this, and the people that are on your board, part of your dream team, and part of your dream team outside the board are a top firm of accountants and a top firm of solicitors, and that are experienced. And they have to be, otherwise you can't do many of the things that I've suggested that you do. Accountants, I've already said. Currently, all the big five represent me. Somewhere, someplace, they all represent me right now. And a good friend of mine who's just, tomorrow is her last day at E&Y. She's joining me. And, today, Anderson, E&Y, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Deloitte all are doing work for me someplace. Okay, this is a tip. They're into relationships. This is a kind of a phony word like synergism was in the 80s, but they are. They're into building relationships that when you do business deal 1, 2, and 3, they understand where you're coming from, and they understand the team has its own psyche. It has its own sense of reality. So accountant 1 asks lawyer 2 a question. He knows exactly what he or she means when they answer them, as opposed to reinventing the wheel every time, bringing in new accountants and new lawyers, etc., etc. Once you have a top team around you, you don't replace them unless they're not giving you proper service, they're not accomplishing what you need, obviously in legal sense, and they're not winning. But it's very important to understand that. See, we are trying to create a perception in the minds of the people dealing with your company. And again, perception is reality, and that we hire the very best. By definition, people know that when they deal with me. We're not dealing with some also-ran. That's not to say I don't use boutique firms for special niche projects, and I do. But they are dealing with other high-performance people that I know what the results are going to be, and the results are going to be extraordinary. And your expectations must be always to win, always. And lawyers, in fact, I talked to a lawyer yesterday in Miami. We're going to court. And I said that, I've been doing this 30 years, and he's been practicing law 25 years, and I don't want to hear all this bullshit about Rule 11. Rule 11 means, in American law, is that if you bring a frivolous lawsuit, you can get, really done by the judge. And I said, I don't bring frivolous lawsuits. By definition, I know. And I said, I don't want you telling all my people just because I'm here in England that we're worried about Rule 11 and start sending me cover your bum faxes and letters and emails because you're afraid. And he says, okay. So yesterday evening, I got a voicemail from my partner, Bruce Whipple. Remember, if you ever see Bruce, it's not a good thing. And Bruce says, well, I don't know. It must be because we've been here 3 or 4 days with Tim, and he's really sounding positive. Like we're going to kick their butt, then we're going to do this and that, and I'm not sure. It must be because he's really feeling part of the team now. And then as an aside, or another voicemail, he calls back and says, oh, I just found out he had a little chat with you on the phone. I now understand why he's so positive. Because I will not allow negative bullshit from my professionals. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear where there's a 5% chance we're going to lose. There's a 0% chance we're going to lose. And you've got to build that into the team. And the person that hires everybody, the founder, the CEO, whatever, the managing director, sets the tone. And from the top, the tone flows down to the very lowest person that works for the company and the very smallest person that's part of those professional team. part of your professional team. Power strategy number 7, the way you build a mega successful business is to use other people's money. Now, I won't say that only poor people put money in deals. That's not right, because that's not the truth. But, I mean, leverage buyouts and all these other things, thank you, are by definition done with somebody else's money. I mean, they may have the proposed chief executive put on some, 50,000 pounds in a £100 million deal. I mean, some 50,000 pounds in a $300 million deal. That may happen. But for the most part, I mean, you're not dealing with your own money. They want to see a commitment, and there's a part of this seminar later on today, in fact, a few minutes, where they will want to see you commit yourself to see if you're really willing to put your, it's called skin on the line, and you know what kind of skin they're talking about. And that's here in this city, it's every place in the world. But to the extent beyond a commitment, a show of commitment, it's always somebody else's money. It's always somebody else's money. The biggest leverage in life, ladies and gentlemen, 2 biggest levers in life you have are other people's money and other people. Other people's money and other people. Okay, now you have 2 rules of finance. These are Peña's rules. Borrow big bucks. Excuse me. Borrow bucks, borrow big bucks. Then when you have a problem, you've got partners. I still remember talking to some bankers trust guys. We were trying to work out a deal a couple years ago, and they had been on the Donald Trump workout. And Donald Trump sat there with a straight face and said, I need 460. He went through all these requirements he needs for monthly for his businesses, and he says, I need $460,000 a month for personal expenses. And the bankers trust guys who are now at Citicorp were telling me, he said that with a straight face. Then later on that evening over drinks, I said, and you gave it to him, didn't you? They both bowed their heads and said, yeah. You don't ask, you don't get. And in Britain, not many people ask. The very senior guy at Deutsche Bank, he crewed. When you rowed, did you crew or row? For the blue. He did sculls or whatever you call it at Oxford. And we needed a name of a guy at Merrill Lynch, and we're trying to figure out an angle how to get to this very senior guy. And then we go meet the guy, we see the guy, and then he says, oh, did so-and-so send you over? I go, no, we came on our own. He says, oh, he and I crewed together, or rowed together at Oxford. We read history together. And here while I'm sweating in blood, trying to find a way to get to this guy, and my partner in the deal went to Oxford with him. I go back into the conference room, I'm giving him a bollocking, I'm just raging. I said, Jesus, why did you... Well, you never asked me, and I wouldn't call him myself, really. Then later on in the same transaction, this is God's truth, we needed to get to a woman who was the co-head of something else at Credit Suisse First Boston. And so I said, well, let's ask our buddy, our partner at Deutsche. Oh, yes, I coached her at Oxford. I coached her crew or whatever, double coxes or whatever the hell you call it. You coached her. I said, then I went to her PA. His PA says, I want a list of every single person he went to school with, has been in business with, worked for, slept with, everything. And I mean, virtually the list is from here to the airport. And then, I mean, that ended. We didn't have to make as many calls then. We just, so-and-so sent us. And the only caveat was don't go around telling them that Deutsche Bank conditionally underwrites the deal. Of course, we would never say that. Never. Deutsche Bank conditionally underwrites the deal. But I mean, see, people he wouldn't make that call. He wouldn't. And for those in the audience, most of you can relate to that. You just don't do that. But I certainly can. And I have no compunction in doing it. Money is like the sixth sense. You can't make use of the other 5 without it. I believe he was English, Somerset Maugham. I think that's spelled correctly, is it? No, it's not. I was just making a joke, Barry. And here we're caught. Okay. That is like the sixth sense. Because ideas without money are worthless. Money first, then marketing. Money first, then marketing. And marketing can be expensive, unlike you may have read in some of the books. It can be very expensive. And this isn't a marketing seminar, and we're not going to dwell on that. But without the dosh, and the way I've done it and the way successful people have done it in raising money, you go to them generically, this is the idea I have, and they'll come back to you. You warm them up first, and then they say, if the numbers stack up, we like the industry. Most people have trouble raising money because, one, they're talking to the wrong person at the financial institution. Now, you wouldn't ask, do you really have the authority to make a decision? I would. You wouldn't ask, do you like this industry or don't? Because it wouldn't be British for him to say, no, we don't like this industry. He's certainly not going to tell you unless you ask him. So we get a lot of those questions out of the way before we even go to the financial institution. And in America, I say, do you have any regulatory problems that would preclude you from making this loan if you like the deal in such and such an industry? Yes or no? Same with the British institution, except you don't have to worry about the regulatory as much as they do in the United States. So we've pre-qualified them. It's like selling insurance. If I could show you a way to do such and such with your estate, over the blah-blah-blah that would enhance the estate that you can live in, yes or no? And the answer is always going to be yes. You must spend 90% of your time in pursuit of money, because without the cash, you're dead in the water. And I would add to that 90% of your time in search of money and ways to do transactions. A gentleman who asked me at the break, as I was walking out, I understand this, you got to be first, and he's being bought out by his employees. He says, what do I do now? Now, he was a little long in the tooth, so I felt like saying, but I didn't, because I think he knew I was going to say this. I'm not sure that you have time to do anything else. For your state, maybe you can get something started. But these cycles we're talking about are 3 to 7 years. The shortest I've ever done it from an inception of an idea or a genesis of an idea to exits 25 months. The longest, 13 years. 13 years I try to guess what the market was going to do. How do you get the banks and the financial institutions to lend you your money you need? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, this is a real difficult one for the British. You've got to ask them. You've got to call them up. You've got to put the phone to your ear. Another story that I use was working with one of the high-profile CEOs here in the city, and we were working on trying to do a deal for Booker PLC. And there was only there was 3 CEOs shortlist, and Morgan Stanley, it's no secret, was working on the deal with us, and they said, Morgan Stanley, there's only 3 guys in the city that we could do this with. So they named the 3, and I said, which is the top one? And I said, fine. Why don't we get this guy? I said, oh, no, he wouldn't do the deal. Has anybody called him? No. Get his phone number. Get him on the phone. Got to his receptionist, his PA, got to him on the phone, said, if I could interest you in a deal, $7 billion, blah, 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 would you be? He said, absolutely. What industries? I'll come over and I'll tell you. I got over there, and I'm sitting across his conference table from him, and then he tells me he turned the job down 5 months before. And I talked him into doing it anyway. We had trouble getting a venture capitalist, and Sinven, the head of Sinven, one of the big VCs, venture capitalists, calls him to go shooting at the weekend, right in the middle of the deal. Boy, I wish I could be there, I thought. They go shooting, they spend 3 days, he comes back, I ask him, well, what happened? Oh, he never mentioned the deal to me. And, of course, I wouldn't mention it myself. Boom! I fell out of the conference room chair onto the floor. Then I leapt on him and started choking him. He wouldn't ask. And the other guy didn't mention. He obviously didn't want to do the deal. Do you think he called you to go shooting at his goddamn estate and it was a coincidence, you moron? Oh, I probably was. I was probably on a short list to go shooting, actually. I was due an invite. Fuck you, idiot. And that's the way it is here. It's unbelievable. How to make a financial presentation. Now, you may laugh at this, but no one makes them better than me. And I don't talk much different to the institutions than I'm addressing you this afternoon. We certainly have nobody going to sleep in my presentations. I practice, practice, practice. And if I still practice at my level of expertise, God knows what you ought to be doing. And you don't go to your best friend first, you go to your worst prospect first. So by the time you get to your best prospect, at least you don't have your thumb up your backside. One of the biggest mistakes in trying to raise money is you go to where you think you've got leverage to start with. And basically your hands are sweaty, you don't know what you're saying, you're mumbo-jumbo, and they don't do the deal. Oh, well, Jesus, okay, then I guess the deal can't be done. You go to your worst first. And I would recommend, I'd go to the worst. If you're doing a deal in London, I'd go to Aberdeen. I don't know what else is more distant than Aberdeen from London, but go there. Go to Madrid or someplace where you can't even speak the language, practice. And then after you've made 15, 20 presentations, then go to the real prospects that you feel have the facility, the ability, and the desire to finance your transaction. And if I go to the worst prospect first, it's just fundamental rules of the game. To push through your fear of rejection, remember, you're interviewing these people. You make it known that I'm talking to 5 banks, 4 venture capitalists, 2 mezzanine lenders. It's an interviewing process. You turn the tables. You turn the tables. And you want to find a couple of venture capitalists that like the industry, they're willing to invest in it if the numbers stack up, and you want to find 2 or 3 financial institutions. By financial institutions, I mean traditional, like NatWest, Lloyd's, Bank of Scotland. So you want alternatives. The name of the game at financing, ladies and gentlemen, is having alternatives. You're interviewing them. I've gone as far as have a conference room here and sit there, all the sorry arses in the same goddamn room, and bringing in one at a time. And for those of you that have been in business with me, you know I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. This is one of my real pet peeves. I'm telling you. Monahan from Domino's Pizza, that slide from an hour, 2, 3 hours ago. No business plan. Now, that's not to say you don't have a 3 or 4 page executive summary. But now, why don't I like business plans? And why would I not want you, in your infinite wisdom, in your double first from Oxbridge, armed with a goddamn business plan? Now, think about it. First of all, it gives them a benchmark to measure you by, and you can't manage. You're way out of a wet paper bag. So why in God's name would we want to give them some sort of benchmark that they can hold you to? That's number one. Number two, a business plan is nothing more, if you haven't been able to tell, I'm on a roll now. A business plan is nothing more than a big, fat-ass guess. A guess. Revenues will be higher than they should be, and costs will be lower. I've never seen one of you fail with your business plan. Yet, almost all business plans fail. Now, why is that? Even the British bankers are smart enough to figure this out. You don't want, and a venture capitalist in a good bank or a good Morgan Stanley will write your damn plan. And they know what they're doing. You don't. The only people that make money off business plans are the people that write the software. for you to use. On top of it, 95, now this is going to be a stunner for you, 95% of all business plans, ladies and gentlemen, don't get read, or they're read by some low-level nerd that just got out of university because he's got to practice on something. And just think of all the hours, the weeks, the months that you put into them. It's tragic, isn't it? It's tragic. One of my mentees came back from the Harvard Business School here a few months ago. I told him not to go back and get an MBA, but he did anyway. And he came to me with a business plan. Oh, God. And I just tore it to pieces. We were in the Virgin Upper Class Club at the LAX airport, Los Angeles, and I just ripped it. And I said, is this the best? And he graduated first in his class, etc. Is this the best the Harvard Business School can put out? And he says, I knew it wasn't a good idea coming to you with my business plan. I said, you're absolutely right about that. I'm just, I'm vehement about this. I am. And it's... Do you think Richard Branson ever wrote a business plan? You're kidding yourself if you think that. I'm not going to ask you because you're just going to lie to me how many of you have written business plans. Executive summary, they'll help you put the business plan together if that's what you need. I've never written a business plan in 30 years, and that's the truth. Now, if in your infinite wisdom, your deal, the interest rate percentage points are not worth quibbling over, if 1, 3, or 5 over basis or LIBOR or whatever the hell rate it is makes a difference in your deal, the deal is too tight and there's no room for errors, and you're not a manager. You're not a good manager. You're not. Why do I look for fat margins in big markets? Because even though I am a good manager, I don't want to be put to the task of managing within tight constraints, and either should you. If 3 over LIBOR, the difference kills your deal, the deal's too tight, and you shouldn't do it. Because most of you, maybe there's a handful of good managers in the audience, I doubt it, because that would be just such an anomaly beyond my comprehension. You're not. You're just not. You're just not. And it's no fault of your own. You haven't been taught to be a good manager. I lecture at the Nairobi University and various universities in America. I ask 3 questions at the business school, graduate school level. 3 questions always. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, how many classes have you had in buying a business? No hands go up. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, how many classes have you had in selling a business? No hands go up. Number 3, how many classes in leadership have you had? Only in recent years do a few hands go up at some of the major schools. And I looked to the dean of the School of Business. I said, well, what the hell? What are you teaching these kids? Teaching them how to do numbers? Crunch numbers? You can teach a monkey how to do Lotus 1, 2, 3. And as my handcuffs, Freudian slip, as my cufflinks, and not today, my tie, not today, and because I wear frog ties and cufflinks, and because you got to kiss a lot of frogs. Financing transactions, ladies and gentlemen, is a numbers game. And the sooner you figure that out or you accept it emotionally, the better off you're going to be. It's nothing more than a pure numbers game. I've talked to a lot of people. David Raker, my partner in the publishing business, great. First time he makes a presentation to a venture capitalist, this was 3 years ago when we got started, the venture capitalist said, yes, I'll put up all the money for 60% of the deal. I get a voicemail, and he's all excited. He says, I turned him down, Dan. This is the first presentation the kid's ever made. He said, I turned him down, Dan. I looked him right in the eye and said, no. A year and 9 months later, we got the second yes. And I made the presentation. And by some luck of the draw, the guy liked the deal, etc., etc. But David Reeker has contacted over 700 financial institutions. And he turned the first yes down. Now, he doesn't make that mistake anymore. And he's got a lot of scar tissue. And he's going to be 40 this year, or maybe it's next year. And this guy's aged. I mean, he had this young little chubby cherub face. He had no gray hair, no wrinkles. And now, man, he looks like he's been ridden hard and put away wet. But he owns 24% of a $125 million market cap company. And he walks 6 inches taller. He doesn't want to have to call 700 financial institutions again. But he knows how to do it. He knows how to do it because he's learned to kiss a lot of frogs. It's like I was taught years ago by one of my best friends, the best salesman I ever knew, a guy named Walter Levine, on Manhattan. He said, Dan, making financial presentation is like pitching girls. I go, what do you mean? He says, if I stood out here on Fifth Avenue and I asked enough women if they want to sleep with me, one's going to say yes. I said, oh, bullshit. That's not going to happen. I sit in his limo, I'm drinking champagne, and I'm watching him, and he's standing out there. He got spit on, slapped, and kicked. But the 16th woman that he asked, drop dead gorgeous. She looked at her watch and said, yeah, your place or mine. He steps back in the limo with me. She sits down. I'm gobsmacked, as they would say in this country. And I asked her why. He says, well, I got an hour and 20 minutes. I'm a little randy, so what the hell, why not? And to this day, whenever I talk to Walter about it, he says, Dan, it's a numbers game. And it is. If you must be prepared to back your own dreams with security or cash. If you can't, won't, remember I talked about that, at least that commitment you can make. If you can or won't, back it. How can you expect anyone else to? Most people fall down at this hurdle because they are not prepared to risk a cent of their own money on their dream. Lenders like to see you put your life on the line, especially in the early stages, which most of you are at. At my stage, I don't have to do that anymore. I haven't personally signed for anything in a long, long time. It keeps you focused and serious. Well, if you're only worth 50,000 pounds and you got 50,000 pounds at risk, it keeps you focused. It does. There's no question about that. It keeps you focused. And that's the only reason they do it, because it's certainly not any of the money that they are depending on for you to finance. Real net worth in the tens or hundreds of millions is not built to running the business. It is built from selling, floating the business, and then repeating this process. All the major fortunes that have been made in recent years have been made this way. Buying, selling, or buying, floating, etc. It's a very simple concept, and everybody realizes it. I mean, it's in this game like I am, and that has been in it for a long, long time like I have. Now, since you have a finite life, we're not going to live forever, you can do this maybe 3 to 5 times in your career. For those of you that are older, maybe one more shot at it. But it's actually 3 to 7 years. 3 to 7 years, 3 to 5 years. Now, with the advent of AIM stock exchange here in this country, I mean, it's easier to float things. And the easier it gets, the shorter the time frame. You can get out, get liquid. I have a friend of mine that gets involved in public companies, starts them, and then resigns as a chairman or MD, turns them over to somebody else, and does it again. Because once you're not on the board, then you're free to sell shares at any time. The great thing, one of the reasons I went public here first, was there's no such a thing as Rule 144, a stiff stock. What does that mean? In other words, the day that I first was floated here, my stocks weren't restricted. I could sell them. I'd have to announce it, and the shareholders might not like it, but I could sell them. In America, they make you keep the damn things for 1, 3, 5, 10 years. You can't sell them. Then you never get out. When I tell friends of mine that run public companies over there, Jesus, Dan, no wonder you moved there. See, you've got so many benefits here. The company's house. Private companies have to post their records, even if it's a year late. In America, you can't find out anything about a private company without a private investigator and you tap their phones. There's a lot of things you take for granted here. That's why it's a great place to live. It's a great place to make money. Some of you will say, after hearing you, Dan, we realize this. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It does have to do with modeling someone that's done it before you. I wish that Grazos was alive. Costa, he told me about 20-some years ago, he says, Dan, Lloyd's of London's going to get in trouble. He says, it's unbelievable, the names, those guys that are the names. And he says, I don't know who they are, but they're a great group of fellas. And he says, you know, they just pay. And in recent years, we all know that the names did get in trouble and they lost a lot of money. And but it's a great place. You have great opportunities here. Great opportunities. And after this, you can never say you didn't understand those opportunities, because now you're being given information, albeit not new, but in a different form that you can use in moving forward with your own dreams and passions. And again, I mean, notwithstanding, we've got room temperature IQs. It doesn't matter if your IQ is room temperature. It doesn't. I never knew about room temperature being 88 degrees. That's a thermometer. That must be an anal thermometer. Academic intelligence offers virtually no preparation for the turmoil, chaos of opportunities which exist today. Virtually none. I mean, the kids that are coming out of school today are just unbelievable. A partner, his brother just went to work for Goldman Sachs in London. And he's a young kid, bright, first in his class. And he works for Goldman Sachs, so that means he's one of the better ones. And he doesn't have a clue. Do you realize 67% of all the money managed on the planet today is managed by people less than 30 years old? Two-thirds of that two-thirds, we're talking about trillions of dollars, is managed by kids less than 26 years old. Do you really understand what that really means? It's staggering. When the next dump comes, we have people, most of the people, all the people that manage money today weren't around in the crash of '87. It's going to be staggering. I mean, it's going to make, I can't find words to describe it. I just can't. I mean, the things like bearings and those kinds of things are just, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the average net worth of a Forbes 400 member who dropped out of college is $4.8 billion, and the average net worth of a Forbes member with Ivy League degree is $2.3 billion. What does that tell you about education? And that's without Bill Gates' numbers in it. Because Bill's, skews the numbers quite a bit. But that's without Bill's numbers. I don't know what the hell it'd be if you add Bill's 100 billion or 110 billion, whatever the hell he's worth. Education got nothing to do with it. But it's better if you're smart than stupid. There's no question about that in any program. It's better. How much better? I don't know. But it is better. But it's not a requisite to have a double first Oxbridge or Ivy League education. It isn't. It just isn't. As many of the people prove. Richard Branson, Bill Gates, etc. As Andrew Carnegie, and I almost bought Skibo Castle once, his old home. Here's my formula for success. Concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively upon the business in which you are engaged. Having begun on one line, resolve to fight it out on that line and to lead in it. Lead, be different, be first. Different way of saying it, same thought process, same precepts, without a doubt. Interesting point. For those of you that are familiar with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, you remember that he went to interview as a newspaper reporter Andrew Carnegie in San Francisco, I don't know, a long time ago, 70, 80 years ago, maybe longer. And he was so engrossed with the man, the old man liked the kid, that he stayed the weekend. Then at the end of the weekend, Mr. Carnegie pulled out his pocket watch and said, I'm going to give you an opportunity once in a lifetime to interview the 500 richest, blah, 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 write a book, probably take you 20 years, to the secrets of the super wealthy. Would you like to do it? And he looks down at his watch. Now, what Napoleon Hill didn't know at the time is he had given him 60 seconds to answer the question. 60. Not 6 years. He wasn't British. 60 seconds. 26 seconds into the question, Napoleon Hill said, yes, I'll do it. Mr. Carnegie was looking for a man that knew how to take action. Now then, Mr. Carnegie, drop the other shoe. Well, of course, you realize you won't get paid. All the way home from Mr. Carnegie's house, he's thinking, God, my family's going to think I'm an idiot. I'm going to think I'm crazy. Maybe I ought to go back. And he surmised people like Mr. Carnegie probably don't renegotiate deals. And that's my pet peeve. You lie to me, you cheat me, or you try to change a deal, you might as well give your soul to God, because your ass is mine, saith Peña. And all the big guys are the same. You try to change a deal. I make a deal even though it's bad and I'm getting ripped. That's my problem. I'm a big boy. I don't care about interest rates changing, economic conditions. That's all bullshit. I'm a big boy. I know economic conditions change. I know interest rates change. I know countries can nationalize industries. Yet the yous, as they would say in Scotland, that's the first thing you cry about. But the things change, Dan. Well, I don't give a damn things change. Don't cut a deal, then. The summary of the power strategies 1 through 8. 1, dream big. Pursue your dream with passion. 2, be first or be different. 3, there are no rules. Go outside the box. 4, you can't do it alone. Build a solid team to back you. 5, create an instant track record by leveraging off the track record of others. 6, get good representation. Get great representation with the lawyers and accountants and professionals. 7, harness the awesome power of other people's money and other people. 8, build real net worth by selling, floating the business, and repeating the process over and over and over as many times as you can. You do that, you'll be like the Midas touch. Like Mr. Goldsmith wrote in his youth. I've never seen so much double espresso, and I've been drinking it a long time. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Now, all the rest doesn't mean a flip if you don't do this. This is where the rubber hits the road, or I don't know what the hell metaphors I can use. But this is like sex. It all comes at the end. You know what I mean? It's obvious some of you don't, but anyway. Some fight for the glories of this world, and some sigh for the prophet's paradise to come. Oh, take the cash and let the promise go. This section is about taking the cash and nothing else. Making it liquid and exiting. I can't make it any more succinct than that. Planning an exit strategy, or how to extricate yourself from the clutches of the hideous business monster you have created with your pockets loaded with loot. Another way of saying it. Sounds like a copywriter's way of saying it, actually. Loaded with loot. You can make a good living running a business, but as I've already said, the big money is taking a business and exiting either by selling it or going public. Now let's talk about that in some depth and see if I can get this across to you as succinctly as I know how. Now, this is a U.S. figure. I don't know what the U.K. figure is or the European figure, but alone in the United States, $200 billion worth of businesses are for sale at any given time. And 95% of all businesses in America don't sell. You know why? Because they're all trying to get rich off one transaction. Because they bled and starved over their business for 10, 15, 25, 35, 40 years, putting their money back in the business, etc., because how many people have heard that bullshit? It's why invest in something else? I know this is the best. So then when it's time for you to exit, you're trying to get rich off one transaction, and everybody knows it. Over 5 years. For those of you in business, that's almost everybody in the room. Unless you have some great desire to leave your business to your heirs and to form some sort of dynasty, why do you have the business? Unless it's to sell. Now, one of the techniques I use in America, I've used it here as well. We'll sit down with Mr. and Mrs. Doofus. I'm going to buy their business. Would you have any partners, Mr. and Mrs. Doofus? Oh, no, we own 100% of this business. I said, no, you have a partner. No, we don't. Sorry, Mr. Peña, we don't have a partner. I said, yes, you do. United States government, 55% inheritance tax. Similar tax in this country without estate planning. 96+% of the people in the world have no estate planning. I'm not talking third world. I'm talking about sophisticated world. Not even a will. And what's going to happen to you, Mrs. Doofus, when Mr. Doofus goes? Well, I don't know. Well, you got no liquidity in your business. Well, what do you mean? You're going to have to pay 55% of the worth of this miserable business to Uncle Sam in inheritance tax. Well, we ain't got no 55%. I said, you've got no liquidity. So Arvie here, Arvie Doofus is going to leave Helen Doofus with a bill. And how are you going to pay it, Helen? And she looks at Arvie, who's spitting up blood from emphysema. Arvie, you never told me that. What am I going to do? And it's no different in this country. The best prospects to buy business from are from 57 to 62. Been in business 14.6 years, and better one of them spitting up blood. Now, some people say that that's what I look for, and that's not true. I just happen to know the statistics. Now, 50% of all Fortune 500 companies from 1980 don't exist today. That's a staggering figure. And it's not much different for the FTSE. Why? Consolidation, out of business, Smith Corona typewriter, buggy whip. Another statistic, not a statistic statement. If you're over 40, you should be looking to sell now as soon as possible because you may never see another up market in another up economic cycle. And obviously, if you're a lot older than 40, you know what that means. And if you're 54 years young like myself, or a half a century plus 4, as my kids remind me, cheeky devils that they are, it's time. Because it takes, as we're going to talk about, it takes about a year to sell a business if you do it right. It actually takes more than that, because we're going to talk about that, because we want uplifted earnings and we want to clean things up. Most people's idea of exit strategy is to clutch their heart one day and fall face forward into their in-tray. Now, you know, I mean this slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I can just see some of you falling into your in-trays. I really can. I can. Boom! Right through the in-tray, you bust through, and you've got some old antique desk that your grandfather left you, so you smash your head, and you know, I can see it. Now, dropping dead, or you got a 3, 5, or 10-year plan. And we're not going to talk about the dropping dead. By the way, the only industry that I'm aware of that addresses exit strategies properly is insurance. And I'm not here to sell insurance, and they've got, you know why they're interested. Because they want to sell you a whole bunch of whole life insurance. And I'm not going to ask how many insurance peddlers we've got in the audience. I happen to be in the insurance business in the Netherlands. We're consolidating small insurance companies. But and by the way, I don't mean peddler in a derogatory sense. It came out that way, but I sold insurance, so I know what the industry is all about. I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. You got to start thinking about getting out. when I start a business, I start with the idea of selling it. The day we sit down to talk about starting it, we start talking about exiting by sale to an industry partner or a flotation. I don't get into businesses anymore where I think I can. You remember that 13-year business I was in? I thought that I knew the economic cycles. I thought I understood this. I understood nothing. Interest rates went against. I got all the crybaby excuses. I was just bullheaded, stubborn, and greedy. Full stop. Now I'd rather sell 20% early than 5% late. Because 5% late means you're a long-term investor now. And you're stuck. If you aren't selling your business, you've bought it. Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. His basic premise is that all entrepreneurs aren't good businessmen at running the business. They're good at starting ideas, coming up with ideas of starting businesses. And I agree pretty much with that. I asked you this earlier, and I saw the looks on your faces. Would you buy your business if it were sale today? You had the opportunity to buy it? I know the answer. See, you wouldn't be foolish enough to buy your own business, would you? You're not that stupid, are you? You wouldn't let you leg yourself over, would you? Well, then why do you think, are you that much smarter than the moron you're going to try to sell it to? I don't think so. Somebody that didn't see the opportunity to sell. Virtually all people know when to buy businesses. Hardly any know when to sell. Hardly any. I met with one of the co-founders of MFI, the furniture thing, the other night. And I knew Noel Lister, the founder of... And I remember when he sold it. He and I invested together in a bad investment deal that we lost our shirts, both of us. And I remember when he sold about 15 years ago or thereabouts, and he spent 4 or 5 million pounds on a big yacht that he had built in Holland, and he took the rest of his money. And this was a guy that knew when to sell. A Yorkshire man, as they say. Little joke about how many people from Yorkshire do we have? Okay. There was a program again on BBC, a 2-hour program on Yorkshire cricket that could have been 30 minutes. And they've got some Yorkshire guy, and I can't remember his name, and he's talking about the greatest spin bowler or whatever the Yorkshire cricket ever saw in the 50s or 60s. And he says, I remember interviewing him one time, and he said, and he was making it to believe like this guy wasn't as bright as he could have been. And he said, I remember him saying, Yorkshire cricket in the 60s is going to rise from the ashes like Spartacus. Spartacus? And I roared. I fell out of the chair laughing because it's obviously the Phoenix, right? And this guy from Yorkshire says, like the Spartacus. And he said the staple food of a Yorkshire cricketer wasn't salads or health foods. It was fish and chips. And he went on and had all these little vignettes, stories about Yorkshire cricket. And at the end of the day, he was basically saying Yorkshire cricketers were thick as a plank. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I've never been to Yorkshire that I know of. But it was interesting. Again, BBC in its infinite wisdom made a 30-minute program into 2 hours. And but I like BBC. They interviewed me. They were very nice to me. I went to the BBC headquarters over there by the Langham Hilton, whatever that. Very nice. A nice lunch. Okay. I've already said they don't know when to sell. They only know when to start. Now, if you haven't already figured out, ladies and gentlemen, the good news is you're here, and the bad news is you're here. You are the problem. Now, I've said this 15, 20, 30, 40 different ways, all morning, all afternoon. You are the problem. You have no problem but you. It's not industry, it's not interest rates, it's not the economy, it's not the chancellor and the budget. It is you. Full stop, period. End of story. I love when the newspaper pundits come out, oh, the chancellor's going to do this, the budget's going to... Doesn't make a shit. If you think what the budget does is going to affect your net worth, you ought to jump in front of the first lorry driving by this hotel. Now, let's talk about the 7-step exit strategy, how you get out of your heinous business that you're in. And see if we can find somebody to leg over, stuff it to them. 1, this eliminates almost everybody in the room. Make your business independent of you. Now, by the way, almost every business in this room would be better off without you. But that's another story. We got to make the business independent of you. A business is not saleable unless it is almost totally independent of its owner, founder, because then they're going to look at what's cash flow going to be, what is turnover going to be without this man or woman or beast. Who wants to buy a business which is completely dependent on one person who could get sick, die, or just decide not to participate once he gets the money in his pocket? And believe me, I can count on 1 or 2 or 3 fingers the businesses that I've been involved in, either as a principal and an advisor or an agent, that once you give the guy all the money, he doesn't physically die, but he might as well not be there. And we're not here to talk about how to buy companies, piecemeal, out of cash flow, but believe me, don't give them all the money out at once. Most owner-founders cannot let go of their baby, and they end up crippling the business or capping its growth to a low level. Most of you are choking your business to death because you're involved in every business decision. Most of you can't buy pencils or clips or notepaper without you signing off on it. I had a guy that had 125 million Deutschmark a year business at my castle the week before last, and he signs every check. And when I asked him, how long have you been 125 million Deutschmark business? He looks down, and with his greatest German strength, he said, a long, long time. If you make those kinds of decisions, that's one of the basic reasons you haven't grown any. See, most entrepreneurs are great deal makers, but poor managers. Not most. We're being kind here. We're being British. You're all lousy managers. So, considering bringing in a professional management. That costs money. Costs equity if they're any good. And you would rather have 100% of a £1 million company than 40% of a £300 million company. And be prepared to share and ultimately let go of your dream. Only in this way can you realize the benefits of your dream. If you can't get liquidity in your business, ladies and gentlemen, what's it worth? Why do public companies, floated companies, sell at a higher multiple than private? Liquidity. Because realize means to make real, tangible. You can sell a floated company's shares. What the hell can you do with yours? I know what I can do with them. You realize in the private sector, a company that you can buy at 3, 4, 5 times cash flow or EBITDA sells at 10 or 12 or 15 times cash flow or EBITDA in the public market. Step number 2, make your business a turnkey operation. Systematize everything. Empower your employees. Let them make mistakes. Let them make decisions. When you increase spending authority, I can prove to you, I can demonstrate to you that spending decreases. If you allow your people to make the decisions, people always complain, Dan, they don't make the decisions the MD would make. You know why they don't? Because they don't have the information the MD has. You don't give them all the information. You give the line employee the same information you have, they will make better decisions 95% of the time, 99% of the time, because they're in the trenches doing it every day. Every job in the company could be turned or should be turned into a business, i.e., CEO of the third floor. Ritz-Carlton Hotel, every chambermaid on a floor can spend $2,000 to make a customer happy. And the chief chambermaid of every floor can make any decisions necessary to make the customer happy, i.e., Ritz-Carlton has excellent service. They don't have to go to the assistant manager, whatever, night manager, etc. Try to avoid having irreplaceable people. There's not an organization that I have that not every single person is replaceable, myself included. And just one thing about that, at all times I want 1, 2, or 3 people within each organization that wants to be CEO or that wants my job. Your business should be fully explainable in a 50-page manual. Buyers like to see this level of organization. But remember, structure follows strategy. What does that mean? That means you have an idea, the genesis of an idea, a new business, and your structure follows your overall global strategy or your regional strategy. Too many times we buy a business and we try to bolt on their structure to our strategy, and that's why over 90% of business mergers fail. Because you come up with all the accounting reasons why it makes sense to use their material, do blah, 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 blah. Structure follows strategy. Remember, minutia never makes any money, it only makes manure. Don't get involved in the detail. Doesn't mean somebody shouldn't be involved in the detail, but not you. You're supposed to be a macro thinker, not a micro thinker. What you do is you think micro and expect macro. It doesn't work that way. All the people I've alluded to all day long, think macro, think global, think big. Running a business, exactly. I got ahead of myself. You've got to stay big picture focused. You have to. You have to stay big picture focused. It's the easiest way to raise money, too. You've got an FD, you've got an operations director, etc., but they want you to think big. Banks are more interested in your exit than you are, because at least then they've got a way to get paid back. Do not concentrate on the structure and the systems to the extent that you lose your vision. So there's a fine line you don't want to go over. You've got to maintain your vision, strategy, structure. That's why when I go into an organization, it's very easy for me to figure out if anybody knows what the hell's going on. I ask very simple questions. Step number 3, pay yourself, your directors, and your staff first, through good times and bad times. Remember I told you $200 billion worth of companies for sale in America, 95% don't sell? Because they don't pull money out every year or every other year in good times and bad times. They plowed it all back into the business and they've got to get rich all at the end. Wrong. Do you realize that Bill Gates has an ongoing program to sell his shares every single month? You know what he calls it? Same thing I did. It's not a gimmick, it's a damn truth. Estate planning. He sells tens of millions of dollars every single month. But no, you guys will plow it right back in. And it's not just you guys, it's everybody on the planet. It's not, I like giving the Brits a battering since I'm here. Pay yourself well. Okay. 1, it keeps you motivated. The best form of compensation I've ever used was a cash envelope at the end of each day to my salesman. Of course, the accountants and the FD and everybody, the Inland Revenue will all say you can't do that. Withholding and all that, Social Security, I did it anyway. I don't give a damn. As you can probably tell, I don't much give a damn what anybody says about things like that. Now, step 4, you want to puff up your business like a hog going to market. Puff it up like a show dog, as they say in Texas. I went out with her mother in university. Now, see, I don't mind poking fun at myself. See the difference? Okay, before selling or floating a business, you ensure 3 years of steady rising profits. You always want to sell a business when profits and turnover are rising. You can get away with it with 1 year, 15 months, better 3 years. But sell on a spike. Most of you will have to plan the spike. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you screw the numbers to create the spike. Because some accounting class at one of the universities I teach at came away thinking that that's what I meant, and that's not what I mean at all. Because the big 5 accountants won't let you do that anyway. I've tried. Okay, also trim expenses and accelerate revenues. Trim expenses, accelerate revenues. Now these are pretty common sense, aren't they? There's no, Einstein stuff here. This is no Oxbridge double first stuff. To get people to do it is something else. The closer the compensation is the actual fact which justifies it, the higher the motivation and the greater the impact. For example, these 2 people are my star salespersons, and I give them a bonus at the end of our fiscal year, 3 months after the accounts come in. No, these guys are my stars. I give them monthly bonuses or quarterly bonuses, and the closer their bonuses to what the actual physical act that they did to get the bonus, the more psychological and emotional impact. You can puff up the hog for a show, but only if it's basically a good porker. This is more copy of a copywriter. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Some of your businesses, I'm not laughing that this is funny so much. Some of your businesses are so far down the pan, as I said earlier, much to your chagrin, you're better off turning the key. Because you basically created a job for yourself or your wife, your significant other, maybe a son or a son-in-law, and that's all there is. I can't help that. All I can do is give you sage advice on how to move forward. A lot of this advice has nothing to do with your current business, unfortunately. Step number 5, house clean your business. A clean house brings a higher price. And I mean figuratively. And I couldn't agree with this more. I go into some of these businesses for sale. They look like pigsties. What's it called? A tip? They look like a tip. It's unbelievable. I mean, trim the bushes. I mean, trim the grass. Take the holy carpet out of the hallways. At least put covers on some of the furniture that's worn out over the last 40 years. Especially in this country. There's a lot of that. Of course, a lot of the great estates are like that. Look like tips on the inside. Just come up with my neighbors. You want to see some real tips. Okay. Small images make a big impact when walking, etc. around. Also tighten up, tighten up and renew and start contracts. People will give you the benefit of the doubt for contracted income. This should be obvious to you. Than income that's just day to day or month to month. Check suppliers. Are they loyal? Go around. Make sure that they say that they'll stay with you and that they will stay with a new buyer, etc. Check royalty situations. If you've got a big 5 accountant, they should be doing all this. Check trademarks. Settle patent, pending lawsuits, etc. Now, if I'm on the other side and I know you're trying to sell, you won't be settling any lawsuits with me or anybody that thinks like me. Clean up your financials. Be aware that any good due diligence will easily uncover your more clumsy efforts. And I'm not suggesting for a moment to do anything that's not right, not above board, not moral, ethical, honest, etc., etc. Believe me. Now, approach all people you know in the same or similar business. Do they want to buy your business? If they know you well, probably not. But there may be a fool. It's like a friend of mine says he's going to raise the first round of funding his friends, fools, and family. And in his particular case, he's right. They would be fools to invest with him. Next, go through to your accountants, your lawyers. They're all well contacted and might know someone who is interested. If you're with the big firms, they put it on the internet worldwide. I once sold a business in South Africa to a guy in South America because I think it was Deloitte, to their accounting, to their partnership. A good accountant can put the details, etc. This is another benefit of using the big firms, another benefit, that can be compared against the extra premium to pay the big 5. Soon to be Big Four, by the way. There's going to be another merger. Plan early. Takes about a year from putting a business on the market to achieving a sale. That's if you're lucky. If it's going to sell, it's going to sell in a year. Most businesses don't sell because you're asking too much. It's like the head of the equity fund at Credit Suisse First Boston told me, Dan, we have 3.6 billion pounds to invest. We can buy companies all day long, around the world, in any industry except internet, at 3 to 6 times EBITDA, which is another form of cash flow. Okay? 3 to 6. These moron idiots come in here asking for 12. Now, I was trying to convince them that 6.7 times EBITDA, which I did. Because this was a special situation, I told them. And it was. It was special because I needed the fee. When I say that, I'm telling the truth. It's special. You know, the other side of the sentence is because I need to make the money. Sell your business or take it public. Number 6. Now, this is the real funny part. What is your business worth? I just alluded to it. And you have a card. I think we passed out because I'm not so sure how much time we're going to have for questions. About, are you interested in selling your business? Didn't we pass that out? Okay. I mean, I get some real. I mean, what is your business worth? I haven't done business valuations in a long time because I was afraid that I was going to have a heart attack from laughing so much. But okay, the wrong answer is what the owner thinks he should get for it. That's the wrong answer. Wrong answer number 2, the amount of money the owner says he needs in order to retire. No. The correct answer is what the current market is willing to pay down to and including 0. It's a sobering thing to think that you work for 20 years and your business is not worth fuck all. It's pretty sobering. Pretty staggering. Yet I see a lot of them. Yet if they had sold the business after 5 or 10 years, it would have been worth something. What is your business worth? More specific answer, between 3 and 10 times current annual post-tax profits, depending on the industry, the business, and many other factors. And if it were public, 2 to 3 times that. If it had liquidity. You operate in a cyclical economy and market, try to sell into an upwave, an upswing. We are currently in one. Now, you may be in an industry that's not, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, the market is. We've been in a bull market, arguably, since August of '82. That's 17 years. The average bull market dating back to the first burst on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange in 1630s is 30 months. Do you think we're overdue for a correction? I think so. And when the correction comes, it's going to be like when the meteor hit the earth and did away with all the prehistoric animals. That's what it's going to be like. Sellers and their this is one of my favorite sayings of Warren Buffett. Sellers and their representatives invariably present financial projections having more entertainment value than educational value. Actually. I mean, it's a joke. And you go into the theory, maybe you'll find an idiot to buy. And once in a while you do. Not too often, but once in a while. And the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately for all of us, buyers are more sophisticated now. And you know what's made them more sophisticated? Is they can value companies in the damn internet. They know if you're feeding them a load of rubbish. The internet has reduced the price of other companies that you can buy and increased their own values, which I think is really an anomaly. Because there's really no way to measure the worth of an internet company. They're all losing their behinds. Step 7, start, buy a business, build and puff it up, sell the business, repeat this process, and you will make tens or hundreds of millions of pounds or whatever currency. There's no other legal way which does not rely upon luck. Start with an idea, Build it up, sell it, float it. Cash out and repeat. Start up, cash out, repeat. Start up, cash out, repeat. There are young people in the audience that can do this several times before they pack it in. For some of us more mature in the audience and on the podium, maybe we got one more thrust at the underbelly of business. There was a great line in Sandpiper many years ago. Richard Crenna and the guy that used to ride the motorcycles, don't remember his name now. He played in the original Thomas Crown Affair. Steve McQueen. And there's a great scene about during the Boer War, some war, I don't know what the hell war it was. They were going to go back, and the Boer War wasn't in China, I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, they were going to go back into China, and he says, we're going to go in and take one more thrust at the underbelly of China. Well, for us my age or thereabouts, we've got one more thrust at the underbelly of commerce. And to think that we have more than one more thrust, we are deluding ourselves and we are in big time denial. And even if you're close to my age, younger, you are living in a dream world if you think you've got more than one more thrust at the underbelly of commerce. Any serious buyer will undertake their own evaluation of your business. They will not believe your figures. Believe me, and my rule of thumb is I will not look at any business that does not have audited accounts, full stop. I don't care. Number 2, rule of thumb, I will give a 30 to 40% premium to Big 5 audited numbers as opposed to Schwartz & Schwartz chartered accountants out of Liverpool, 2 brothers and a nephew. And virtually everybody that's buying businesses or everybody that's in the financial institution business, lending, etc., has the same rule of thumb. Some vary 10 or 20% either way. Now this is the summary of the 7-step exit strategy. To achieve this, you need to, 1, make your business independent of you. 2, make your business a turnkey operation. 3, pay yourself and your staff first through good times and bad times. 4, puff it up like a show dog or a hog. 5, house clean your business. 6, sell your business or take it public. And 7, repeat the process ad nauseum as many times as you can. You follow those 7 steps and you'll make a lot of money. Summary of exit strategy. To create wealth in the tens or in the hundreds of millions, you need to 1, start or buy a business. 2, build it up and sell it or float it. Very simple. Very simple. And it's actually not hard to do in practice. It's not only simple to say, it's easy to do in practice. The skill or the discipline is knowing when to sell. And that's why I'd rather be 20% early, and if you're over 40 and you're in an upcycle, get out now. One of my star proteges, mentees, a girl named, she's 46 now, I guess, Candace Knoll. A number of years ago, she started as a flight attendant with, I forget what airline. She moved to Houston in the middle 80s during the Big Depression, oil depression. She started a business that catered to Fortune 50 companies where an executive would move in. She'd take them from getting their kids in school, the wife into social clubs, them into a country club, homes, etc. And she used to rent these flats so they could live in while their houses were being ready. And I made the suggestion to her. I said, why don't you start buying these? Because at that time, you could buy a flat, $3,000 per bedroom. That's how in the bottom of the market. 2,000 pounds per bedroom in a block of flats. 3 years ago, she owns 55 buildings now in Houston. 55. And the smallest flat block she's got has got maybe 40, 50, 60 flats. The biggest she's got has got 250, 300. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedroom. And she had an offer to sell out. And to make a long story short, She came down, heads of agreement, etc., and at the last minute she pulled out because at that time she was only 41 or 42. And she said, what will I do? I have nothing to do. And I'll say, Candace, you're good looking, you're beautiful, you'll have a shit ton of money, and you're single. God Almighty, you got the world by the backside. She didn't do it. And her business isn't worth as much as it was then. I mean, she's probably lost 30% of the value, maybe more. But she didn't know what she was going to do. A lot better than being 55 when her business is maybe worth 20% of that. But what will I do? You'll find something to do, believe me. Or some gigolo will find something to do with you, believe me. Now, we've heard a lot of stuff today. And no matter what you decide to do or not to do once you leave here, you're never going to be the same. You can never say you don't understand, I never had an opportunity because nobody ever explained it to me. A mind once stretched by a new idea never regains its original dimensions. It doesn't. I've had plenty of people come up to me over the years, not just here in Britain, but all over the world. You know, you changed my life, I did this, I did that, I took your course, I did. But you're never going to be the same. Some of you will decide, and I hope it's a minority, or maybe it's none, that I can't do these things. Intellectually, it's not intellectually you can't do them, it's emotionally you can't do them, because you can do them. It's very simple. Some of you will decide that, you know, I'm too old. I hope that's at a minority or a de minimis amount of you. But you'll never be the same. You just never will. Never be the same. Is there questions? Barry? Okay. Like the beginning of my talk today, I think the closing is equally as important, and so if you will indulge me, I'm going to read you some prepared lines. This has been a long and hard day for you because I wanted to pack into this seminar as much useful information as I possibly could. I started the day with a little background information about myself, so you would feel comfortable about two things. Firstly, here was a man who had started from nothing and had no helping hand up the ladder of success. Secondly, here was a man who was genuinely super successful in any meaningful use of the word. Then I explained to you how to groom yourself for super success and how perception is reality. If you walk, talk, and act like a successful person, you create an aura around yourself which attracts money and successful people. That's just how it works, pure and simple. You should practice super success long before you achieve it, and make sure you get out of your comfort zone. Today was about stretching that comfort zone. I was particularly careful to explain why you shouldn't hang around with morons and losers, and how you should try to model yourself on other high-performance people. Even possibly get yourself a mentor who will increase your probabilities of super success quantumly. Next, I told you the only way to create serious wealth was to buy or start a business. To achieve this, you need a dream about which you are super passionate. Then you share your dream and its rewards with others, including directors, lawyers, accountants, and banks. It is the banks and lending institutions who will provide you with that essential nutrient without which your business cannot grow. I'm talking about other people's money, OPM. The final stage of this process is to cash in on your success by selling the hideous monster you've created. To achieve this, you must make your business independent of you and transform it into a turnkey operation. Make sure you pay yourself and your staff through good times and bad times. Clean up your business, and finally, puff it up like a show dog and get it ready for the fair. Doing this just once is a hell of a buzz and can make you a lot of money, millions. Repeating this process several times can make you a seriously wealthy individual with money in the tens or even hundreds of millions. Ladies and gentlemen, my task today has been to try and knock you out of your comfort zone and get you fighting fit. A lean, mean fighting machine ready to take on the world instead of drifting slowly towards old age and death. I hope I have achieved this. But I must warn you, a proven countdown kicks in from the moment I stop speaking. If within 24 hours you have not taken at least some action towards achieving your very own quantum leap, then you will not do it. I can almost guarantee it. In many years of giving such seminars, I have never had this rule proven incorrect. Action really is the key, and the spoils of victory go to those who take bold, decisive action immediately. I heard someone during the break on the telephone to his office making changes already, before the seminar had even ended. Now this person will succeed, I'm sure. Let me end today with one more challenge. Will you learn from what I've shared with you today and my 30 years experience in business and experience and this street fighting knowledge? Will you? Will you join me and thousands of other men and women by becoming a super successful, high-performance person? Will you? And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, will you take the weapons and strategies I have given you today and go out into the world ready to fight, to dare, and to win? Will you make your quantum leap? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention, and may the QLA force go with you and be with you always. Thank you.